UFC Fight Night on Paramount Plus this Saturday from Houston. The main event, a middleweight bout featuring former UFC middleweight champ Sean Strickland taking on the red-hot Anthony Hernandez. Let's get BC in here. Brian Campbell focusing more on the former champ here. He is the underdog in this fight, and it's been 2 years since he lost that belt. It's been a full year since he lost the rematch. What do you believe he has left as he's set to turn 35 later on this month?
That's the big question. That is, in some ways, one of the biggest narratives in this fight, along with can Anthony Fluffy Hernandez declare himself as a legitimate title contender and extend that win streak to 9. But he's got to get through a former champion you mentioned in Strickland and a fighter who has landed the most significant strikes in middleweight history and the third most in the history of the UFC. He is knocking on 35. He is coming off a one-year layoff, which is the longest of his 12 years in the UFC. And I think most importantly, the last time we did see him in Australia, he lost that title rematch to former champion Dricus du Plessis, and there was just a bit of lifelessness over the course of those 5 rounds. It's become a bit of a meme where Strickland will address the fans during fight week and say, I'm going for the knockout, I'm going for the kill. And while, yes, when he's at his best, he has a high-powered offensive attack, he is in your face throughout. We just saw maybe a little tired, a little disinterested, a little down and out version of Strickland. 1 year later, I expect him to be back as close to full strength as possible. But the questions now become, can you go into the deep end of the pool with a fighter like Fluffy Hernandez, who's known for drowning people?
If he does pull this upset, is there a path for another shot at that belt that he lost a couple years ago?
Look, I think this is the #1 contender fight right here. If you look at this division right now, Khamzat Chimaev, the unbeaten new champion, obliterated Dricus du Plessis last year. He's most likely going to make that first title defense against Nasruddin Imavov, the #2 rated fighter out of France who has been on fire. But if you look at the rankings and you look at the run Fluffy Hernandez has been on, the winner of Saturday's incredible main event in Houston really could be next in line for that belt. Not just because Hernandez has been on a tour de force that could equal 9 straight wins with a win on Saturday, but let's not forget this. Even though Strickland has lost 2 of his last 3, they both came in title fights. The first one was a very competitive, almost disputed loss to DDP. And there's one thing Sean Strickland does better than anyone else these days, particularly in the middleweight division, that say ridiculous things into a microphone, get attention brought to him and the fight that he's a part of. He's not afraid to talk trash, and one can imagine if Strickland returns to form on Saturday, that the idea of him talking down Chimaev in the build-up to an inevitable title shot could be next for him. So big stakes for Strickland, but let's not forget the narrative coming in. He's got to prove that that fire is still in the belly.
Yeah, he's lost 2 out of 3, as you mentioned. If that becomes 3 of 4, does he fall off that elite tier at middleweight?
Yeah, he would. And obviously it could come down to the performance level. Is there a way you can lose and still look great without question? And that can get the phone ringing for you. While Strickland is obviously not anywhere close to needing to worry about job security, this is the type of fight where it's almost a mini referendum to find out. Is he going to get catapulted right back into the title picture? Or is there some reason to believe, and I know this is a little disrespectful, but some people are saying it, is he a one-hit wonder? Did he come into the top of the rankings at the right time, upset former champion Israel Adesanya, absolutely dominate him over 5 rounds? Was that the peak of what we're going to see? And maybe derivative versions from here on out. That's what Strickland's facing, because if he loses for the 3rd time in 4 fights, he's still going to have a big name. He's still going to be taking on those up-and-comers, but it could be more in a gatekeeper role to prove whether they're ready for prime time or not. Let's give Strickland a chance, though. Still 34 years old for a couple more weeks, and he still has lived on that feeling that even if you doubt him, he's not afraid of anything. He's going to walk in there, he's going to walk you down, and he's going to look to bring the fight to you.
Well, a lot of people are doubting him, including the betting markets, because this is Hernandez who has the longest active win streak in the division. So what do you believe Strickland's best approach is going to be to snap that 8-match winning streak?
Well, look, in Strickland's favor, he's got a strong takedown defense of 64% he defends on takedowns. Certainly, if you're going to be an aggressive striker, a volume striker, you're going to need to keep your back off the canvas. I think a main reason for the odds being this way is not just the fact that Hernandez is younger and is surging, but it's the fact that he's a completely well-rounded fighter. Sean Strickland does not seem to go out of his way to bring the fight to the ground. In some ways, he has an excellent A game plan. And if that A plan is working, he doesn't look to change off of that, and that sometimes can work against him, like in that rematch with DDP last year where we never saw him make the necessary adjustments. But if you're Strickland, you're going to have to keep Hernandez off of you, and you're going to have to prove, like in basketball, when we say sometimes that teams that love to press hate to be pressed by their opposition. Can Strickland deal with the constant spamming and the type of forward pressure from Hernandez that has literally drowned his opponents in recent fights on this win streak? For Strickland, that jab is always going to be a big part of his game. He has excellent defense and technique for a fighter who is coming at you regardless, but he's going to have to mix up kicks. He's going to have to stay off his back, and he's going to have to do something to dissuade the younger, more aggressive fighter from overwhelming him, because that's exactly what Fluffy brings to the table.
Hernandez has not lost since May of 2020. It's been almost 6 years. Does that winning streak continue?
I think it does. Look, Sean Strickland, tough out, doesn't get finished in big fights, has a great chin. Sometimes we do question those lack of adjustments, but could I see this fight go in the distance? Absolutely. But I also can see Anthony Hernandez just outworking him. And you don't normally say that in fights with Strickland, as we established, because his game is about crowding you, making you uncomfortable, and not giving you either the time or the room to adjust to what he's doing. The problem is he's looking in the mirror at somebody who fights sometimes the exact same way as him and probably has more tools in the belt, a little bit younger. Momentum matters. Strickland coming off a year loss. I like Fluffy Hernandez by decision, but make no mistake about it. If Hernandez finishes Strickland, we are going to be calling for that title shot next. All respect to Nasruddin Imavov, who's probably next in line for the title, but Fluffy Hernandez has the highest upside of anyone in this division who's yet to fight for that belt. Strickland's here. This is a tough chance on Saturday, but I'm taking Hernandez.
All right, Brian Campbell helping us preview the main event on the main card at UFC Fight Night. That card starting at 8 p.m. Eastern Time exclusively on Paramount Plus. Prelims beginning at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. It's all coming to you live from Houston.
On Saturday, two middleweights are looking to claim their stakes at the top of the division in a crucial showdown between former champ Sean Strickland and streaking contender Anthony Hernandez. Strickland's attempting to return to the win column after more than a year away. Meanwhile, Hernandez getting set for his biggest matchup yet. Strickland entering with a 29-7 record to Hernandez 15-2, 11 knockouts to Hernandez 3. A marquee showdown for the first fight night on the road, coming from Houston. And for more, we bring in CBS Sports combat analyst Brian Campbell and Shakiel Mahjouri. And since making his debut back in 2019, Anthony Hernandez 9-2 in the octagon, entering Saturday on an 8-fight win streak. BC, what do you make of his path into the UFC spotlight?
Look, it has been aggressive and abrasive, particularly in recent fights, because Fluffy Hernandez is simply running through the competition in the middleweight division. You want to look back at his performance in August against Roman Dolidze. It'll show you everything you need to know about Fluffy, who took umbrage to some of the words Dolidze said coming in and took it out on him inside the cage, not just wearing him down with that patented stamina and that fast-paced cardio attack, but using that well-rounded game to break Dolidze down, submit him, and drop his body lifeless in the center of the octagon in as disrespectful fashion as possible. The whole point of that was this was Fluffy Hernandez setting a statement to the rest of the division. He claims his two early losses in the UFC only came because he was too willing to fight while injured, fight while ill. He said he learned from those lessons, and what we have now is a complete middleweight who has the most takedowns in division history and actually has the fourth best significant strike accuracy in the history of the UFC, regardless of division at 62%. He can do it all, but he may have that secret spot in his offense, that fast pace, that cardio, that kills the competition. If Fluffy Hernandez is going to get to that championship, this is going to be his final hurdle against Sean Strickland. And this is a huge opportunity for one of the breakout stars in this division to put a legitimate former champion name on his resume. If you know Fluffy Hernandez's game, you know it's full speed ahead, all gas, no brakes, and you better hold up and see if you can do anything but break across from him in the cage.
BC, disrespectful was the right word. What he did to Dolidze was crazy. It wasn't just the choking him unconscious, but he dragged him backwards like halfway across the octagon with that rear naked choke. Absolutely big brothered him, and it really speaks to Fluffy's tenacity. He told UFC.com this week, if I need to fight every person on the list to prove that I'm championship quality, so be it. Anthony Fluffy Hernandez loves to fight. 8-fight win streak, 6 finishes. And the thing that's crazy is when you think of Fluffy, you think of a guy who's a tenacious grappler. He's just in your face, dragging you into deep water and making you hurt. The fun part is he hates grappling. He told me if he never had to grapple a day in his life, he would be happier for it. But hey, it works, and it's about to get him a title shot if he beats Sean Strickland.
We're going to dive a little bit more into that, but what's so interesting to me about this fight is that Strickland and Hernandez maybe have a little bit of similarities just in their approaches. But Shakiel, what are Hernandez's biggest strengths as a fighter? You talk about he's a tenacious grappler, maybe not his favorite, but what else stands out?
He really is the poster child for grappling in the UFC, because when you think about wrestlers and jiu-jitsu players, it doesn't usually scream excitement, but he is definitely an exception to that rule. 6.5 takedowns per 15 minutes. He fools you with pressure, kind of like Merab Dvalishvili. Different entries, different goals, but that sort of in-your-face style. But he is a far more adept finisher. The way he mauls people on the ground might be like second to Khamzat Chimaev in the middleweight division. He loves to get opponents turtled down on their knees and their elbows, and from there, he's throwing knees to the body, punches to the body, he's elbowing you in the head, and he's looking to get control of that head, because as soon as you try and stand up, he's going to snap you down, he's going to either hit you with that arm and guillotine, the rear naked choke, or he's going to use these transitionary periods to get you on the bottom of his half guard, and that is by far his most dangerous striking position. He unloads elbows, he's so active, and he is a menace to try and get off of you when you are turtled or in that bottom half guard. His control time is outstanding. Like, I saw people worry that maybe if DDP couldn't keep Sean Strickland down, neither can Anthony Hernandez, but you see in his fights, not only does he attack the takedowns frequently, but he's really, really good at keeping you there. So if Sean gets taken down, and if Sean can't get back up, it is a bad day at the office for the former champ.
Yeah, sometimes you can compare it to when you look at this matchup, almost like in basketball terms, where you hear often that teams that love to press hate being pressed. And that's the situation that Sean Strickland is up against, because Shaq did a great job of outlining that we're pretty much looking at a complete fighter in Fluffy Hernandez. In fact, the only thing we haven't mentioned in terms of his greatest skill sets might be his chin. He's willing to get in there in a dogfight at any given time. The difference typically is between him and his opponents is he just has a deeper well, a reservoir of stamina that does not slow down. When you add that to the all-around game I mentioned, most successful takedowns in middleweight history for a guy that has yet to finally climb that mountain and get to the title level, that shows you the work that he has been putting in. He does a lot of the same things Sean Strickland does well. I only think Fluffy does it better and has a deeper repertoire. The biggest difference in this fight, in my opinion, and in the opinion of Sean Strickland, who I talked to today, will come down to experience. Has Fluffy Hernandez, through this 8-fight win streak, where he's beaten solid competitor after solid competitor, the kind of fighters you'd rate in that B+ area, can he do the same and have the same effectiveness against the A and the A+ fighters? Sean Strickland, historically in recent years, has met that category of A and A+ fighters, a former champion whose only losses in recent years were in title fights to former champ Dricus du Plessis, including some close fights on the scorecards. On paper, you gotta love everything Anthony Hernandez brings to the table against Strickland. What he has to show on Saturday is that talent rises to the top, and he can do that against anybody. You know he's willing, This guy's ready to throw down, ready to out-grapple you. He's going to do whatever you want because he's got an answer to all your questions.
Yeah, he said he's excited for this fight that he has coming up. So, BC, he is, though, a sizable favorite in this matchup. You talk about this is a huge opportunity, kind of like a final hurdle for him. But could he get a title shot at middleweight if things do go his way? How are you assessing him in the middleweight division?
Let's talk about it. Khamzat Chimaev's the new champion. He absolutely dominated Dricus du Plessis with grappling. In so many ways, if you're looking for potential kryptonite in this division for Chimaev, who's got it? It really is Hernandez, not just the fact that he can wrestle and grapple, but he's got that stamina, he's got that well-rounded game. Nasruddin Imavov is the most deserving of the next title shot, and most agree he probably will get it next, thanks to the winning streak he's on. But if Anthony Hernandez shows up in Houston on Saturday night and not just gets a win, let's imagine a scenario in which he finishes a former champion like Strickland. You could even see a scenario where he could cut the line. The whole point is he's probably one win away from getting that opportunity. He's going to have to raise his game to a new level. Sean Strickland's coming in on a one-year layoff, but we know how good his defense is, how good his takedown defense is, and the fact that he is a volume successful striker who will get in your face. But if Fluffy gets the win right now, it's going to be really hard for the matchmakers or anyone else inside the UFC to hold him back from what he will deserve. And that's finally a crack at the crown.
BC, you say that Imavov is most deserving, and I agree with you wholeheartedly, but if Fluffy goes out there and he actually managed to finish Sean Strickland, I'm not upset if he cuts the line, because not only will he have a better win streak than Nasruddin Imavov, I think it's 8 straight wins to 5, but they both have wins over one former UFC champion, right? Imavov knocks out Izzy. Fluffy might finish Strickland, At that point, I think you're really splitting hairs. I do want to see Nasruddin get the title shot, especially because he's been waiting for it. But if Fluffy beats Sean Strickland, make no mistake, he is just as much a viable contender for Chimaev, depending on what the UFC has in mind for timelines here.
BC, I can't let you both actually go without making a pick. You did say that, this one could come down to experience. We've talked about Fluffy's streak, but does he keep that streak alive, or can Strickland reclaim his glory? BC, who's your pick in this one?
I think the odds makers are right here. Look, you are taking the younger fighter if you're picking Fluffy. Only younger, of course, by 2 years. Strickland will turn 35, though, in 2 weeks. But everything that we laid out earlier, I believe, is true. Hernandez does a lot of what Strickland does well. Only he can do more. Strickland is tough. We know he's coy. He has sneaky great defense for a fighter who gets in your face and looks to let his hands go. But there has been a little issue for Strickland of late, and it's from this standpoint that came out in both Dricus du Plessis fights. His plan A is incredible. It took down Israel Adesanya a few years back to upset his way to the title. But can he make the adjustments if that plan A gets stuffed? I think Strickland ultimately can go the distance over 25 minutes, but this is a Fluffy Hernandez decision win waiting to happen from my vantage point.
Sean Strickland makes it so hard to predict fights. Like, how do you go to a split decision against Dricus du Plessis and then go to a split decision against Paulo Costa when you look at where they're set up in the rankings? Sean's defensive style has a lot to do with that. He is so incredibly difficult to hit clean with that sort of modified Philly shell style, his ability to check leg kicks, get off the center line. He's going to make it tough. And for Fluffy, my concern here is if Sean Strickland can improve on the takedown defense and the ability to get back up on his feet that he did against DDP, I don't know if Fluffy can outdo Sean on the feet. I think Fluffy gets hit a little too clean. You saw Brendan Allen kind of hurt them in their fight. If this stays standing for 25 minutes, I actually think the odds makers are sort of disrespecting the former champ a little bit. However, I'm going to vote a little bit with my heart here. I think Fluffy really deserves this spotlight. I think if he can get it into his realm, he is going to lord over Sean Strickland. It's going to be hard to do it, but I think we haven't seen the best of Fluffy yet. I'm going to go with him, but do not be surprised if Sean Strickland gets this done.
Haven't seen the best of Fluffy yet. Not quite writing off Sean Strickland in this one. But like you both mentioned, this is an opportunity for him to cut the line, and we'll see how it all goes down this Saturday. As always, fellas, appreciate you guys stopping by. The 4th UFC event of the year gets underway Saturday, February 21st from the Toyota Center in Houston, Texas. You can catch the 14-fight card headlined by the middleweight bout between Sean Strickland and Anthony Fluffy Hernandez on Paramount+.